Okay, so everybody should be able to see my presentation for us today, the effective communication strategies.
So whoops, it went 2 slides.
It advanced it. Hang on one second. It advanced it on me. There we go.
So by the end of today's program, we should be able to explain communication changes that take place throughout the course of the disease, decode the verbal and behavioral messages delivered by someone with dementia, and be able to respond in ways that are helpful to that person. And lastly, identify strategies to connect and communicate at each stage of the disease.
So next we have, what is communication? What is communication made up of? Well, it's made up of a lot of different things. It's made up of your body language, your attitude, your tone of voice, how you send and receive messages, your sense of self, how you talk with somebody, how you connect with other people, how you have a conversation with other people, how you express yourself, your body language, any interactions that you have with other people, any relationships that are formed, and how you make decisions, and all your facial expressions and the words that you verbally communicate with somebody. So actually communication seems quite simple, but it is a little bit more complex. And so we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into communication. And as we mentioned, specifically in the different stages along the journey of communication and what it looks like.
So communication changes throughout the disease, and we break the disease progression into 3 stages. So in the early stage, the individual can convey their thoughts and feelings through language. They're able to make decisions about their future care. They may misinterpret what others say from time to time. In the middle stage, or the moderate stage, they're able to still use basic words and sentences, rely more on tone of voice and facial expression and body language, and continue to need emotional connection and meaningful activity. And then in the late stage, they may still respond to familiar words, phrases, or songs, and use body language and the 5 senses to connect primarily.
So some changes that you may notice in the early stage of the disease is some difficulty finding the right words, taking longer to speak or respond back or to process what is being asked of them, withdrawing from different conversations, and struggling with decision making or problem solving. An example of that would be a normal functioning individual that does not suffer from memory loss would have no problems, if they had bread for the sandwich, the meat, and condiments and lettuce and tomato, they would know how to pretty much build that sandwich. Our folks, as they start having memory loss, they would struggle with having to be able to build that sandwich, the sequencing of it.
So now we're going to hear from Martha Tierney. She's Associate Director of Research Volunteer Programs for the National Office of the Alzheimer's Association.
Communicating in the early stages of dementia with the person with the disease is important. At that time, you still have language as a tool, so you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, if you ever have trouble coming up with a word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
And that's a very important point, because a lot of our caregivers often beat themselves up because they're struggling to understand what their loved one is trying to communicate to them. And we really want to impress upon caregivers is that they're, trying to communicate. They can describe it to you. So there's various ways that you can try and troubleshoot and go around that. But sometimes, you can try everything, and sometimes your best laid efforts uh, may be still not something where you'll be able to figure it out. But most of the time you are, with some other options and alternatives, like such as pointing and things like that. So to connect, we're going to directly help them with communication. We're going to ask them, how can we help them when they get stuck? Keep our sentences clear and straightforward. We're going to leave also plenty of time for conversation. So we're not going to rush the person and squeeze it in between our doctor's appointment and grocery shopping. We're going to do it at a time maybe of the day that's better for the person, possibly the morning when they're a little bit fresher. We're fresher as a caregiver to communicate what we're trying to say. You don't want to try and do it around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A lot of our folks can suffer from sundowning, which is an increase in anxiety for them, and they can sometimes often have behavioral issues as a result of it. So that wouldn't be an ideal time to have that conversation. And include the person in the conversation that affects him or her, including planning for the future. In the earlier stages, that's a great time to ask a person what their wishes may be, if they want to remain at home and have someone come in and help them with their needs, or would they rather be placed in a facility? What are their wishes? So you want to try and learn that as soon as possible before they're more compromised as they go on in the journey. Melanie?
Oh, I'm sorry. So keeping in mind a communication in the early stage, we want to avoid making assumptions on the part of the person. We want to make sure we speak directly to the person, communicate in the way that is the most comfortable for the person. So that may be the phone, that may be email, or in person. Always want to have some humor along the way. So it's always good to laugh together, bring up things that you've had fun with in the past, perhaps things that would make that person feel good and happy. Be honest and stay connected with each other.
So some changes that you may notice in the middle stages now are increased difficulty finding the right words, using familiar words repeatedly, asking the same question over and over, inventing new words to describe familiar things, and easily losing your train of thought. The loved one may get turned around in a conversation very easily, and they may start to speak less frequently. They may rely on their caregiver to answer for them more and more. And we want to try to, again, encourage them to try to answer first and then have the caregiver jump in after. In this journey, they often lose their independence. And so we want to try and bring them in as much as possible into some tasks that we're doing, as well as the conversation. And they will start communicating through behavior rather than words. And last but not least, if you notice a major or sudden change, you want to reach out to the doctor. This is very important. Often with the senior population, they can sometimes suffer from urinary tract infections, which can sometimes look like a behavior. It can certainly sometimes cause falls, things like that. So you want to rule some of that out. So you would want to contact your doctor. They would do a urinalysis and find out if there's bacteria in the urine. These types of things may cause some symptoms that may look similar to memory loss and the behavior issues that they're experiencing. So we want to definitely make sure if they're acting different than they normally act, that we're reaching out to the doctor.
And now we're going to hear from Beverly. She's a caregiver to her husband and also a support group facilitator.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse, that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them and their process.
So again, for our communication in the middle stages, we want to connect. We want to make sure we are approaching the person that we love as gently as possible. We're approaching them from the front, not from behind. And we're going to say who we are, and we're going to call them by name. We're going to give them maybe a simple touch on the shoulder or on the hand. We're going to maintain eye contact and get at eye level if we're seated or reclining. And avoid criticizing also, or correcting and arguing with the person. You never want to do that. You never want to power struggle with the person. You always want to have it be seen in a positive light. So your tone of voice is important. How you say it and phrase it is very important. And pay attention, again, to our tone, to what's happening with you. If you're the caregiver and you're saying something and you're already very stressed out, it's probably going to come out where the other person is going to feel your tension and your energy. And so you want to try to, if you're stressed out, just take a couple deep breaths, maybe count to 3 or 4 and collect yourself, or walk away and then come back. So you have a minute to just decompress and focus on saying it properly to your loved one. And take your time in saying it. Very important. Again, don't rush through things.
So now we're going to hear from Rebecca, who's the mother. Her mother has had Alzheimer's disease.
She could sense my frustration, because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, you know, she was very old school, and she's like, don't disrespect me. And I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
So this is really important because we want to make sure we can meet the person where they are and be as patient as possible with them. And they will ask the question 15 times in the same day. So you have to be patient.
So we are going to also connect with them. And as Melanie mentioned, we're going to join them in the loved one's reality. We're not going to expect them to join our reality. And we're going to keep respect and empathy in our mind and patience. And then we're going to assess the person's needs. Have they gone to the bathroom? Have they eaten? Have they been properly hydrated throughout the day? Those are their basic needs. Are those basic needs, have they been met? We're going to also let the person know that you hear his or her concerns. You're listening to them, whether they're expressed through the words, behavior, or both ways. And then you're going to provide a brief answer back to them. And again, when you ask them a question, you're going to want to ask them one thing at a time, not overload them with, 6 questions at a time or 6 different tasks to do. And respond to the emotions behind the statement. That's very important. So don't just listen to the black and white of what they're saying, is what I call it, but what's behind what they're saying. That's what you want to try and assess for as well. As a caregiver, you're wearing many hats and you're constantly assessing what's going on with your loved one. And that's part of your job, which I know can be very challenging at times, but hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll learn some great skills for that.
So continuing with communication in the middle stage, to connect, we want to keep it slow and basic. So basic words, as short sentences as we can use, just to communicate the actual message the simplest way you can. Speaking slowly and clearly, one person speaks at a time and one question at a time. Try to limit the distractions around you when you're having the conversation. Be patient once again. You can offer a guess or fill in words if acceptable. Again, you should try and let the person answer for themselves and then just help them out when they need it.
So we're going to give them multiple cues. We're going to provide visual cues and gestures. And what we often use as well, because our folks are very visual, is you can go on your phone, let's say, or computer to Google, and you can type in steps with pictures of how to brush your teeth. And it'll actually pull up the actual steps with the words and the sentences of what to do. And then next to it, it'll actually have the picture of what to do. And I like those because you can hang it, let's say, in the bathroom, or you could hang it in the house somewhere. And if someone has lost the ability to read or write, they could still follow this because they could look at the pictures and follow the steps. And again, you're going to want to let them try, let's say, for example, to brush their teeth on their own. And then you're going to, if need be, step in as a caregiver, provide hand-over-hand assistance, which is your hand on top of their hand, and gently brush teeth with them. But the visual cues and gestures can be very important because, as mentioned, sometimes they can lose the verbal language or the written word language, I should say. And avoid sudden movements. You definitely don't want to startle them, and that's what the sudden movements do. So, avoid all that. Go slower with our folks, okay? And write things down for them if they have the ability to read it. And put answers into our questions. So what that's referring to is, instead of saying, do you want peanut butter and jelly for lunch? Do you want turkey for lunch? We can say, how about a turkey sandwich today? And so we put already the answer into our sentence. We can also give them hints to lead them to where we want them to go in terms of the answering. And we oftentimes will have to repeat ourselves as caregivers, and know that that's okay. That's part of the process. And remember that their brain is under attack in this disease process. So they are doing the very best they can to try to understand you. And don't take it personally, just simply repeat yourself. And if they're repeating themselves to you, just act like it's the first time that you've ever heard what they're telling you. And turn negatives into positives. You don't want to come off negative of, gosh, I told you this already, and why don't you remember it? You want to turn it around and, again, repeat whatever you're asking them to do in a positive light, a positive tone. And avoid quizzing them. That's very important. Don't try and test them. They're not going to enjoy that process. And in fact, they'll get very frustrated, and you probably will tip them off to having a behavior.
So we're continuing communication in the middle stage to connect with that person. We want to respond with empathy and reassure them. We want to, once again, join their reality wherever they are. We want to give them assurance and that you hear and understand. So anytime they make a comment, sometimes it may be totally off the mark. You just acknowledge that you heard them and then try to get them back on track, give them some clues to where the conversation was heading, and always focus on their feelings. So they're going to be feeling probably frustrated and anxious that they're not able to understand perhaps what you were trying to convey to them. So we always want to validate and redirect that person when necessary.
Now for the late stage. So there's definitely some differences from the early and the middle in terms of how you start communicating in the late stage. Some changes you may notice may include the communication is reduced to few words or sounds, so the communication is impacted. And possible responses to familiar words or phrases would be impacted as well. And how we can connect with someone in the late stages in terms of our communication would be we're going to listen for any expressions of pain, of pleasure, and respond promptly. We're going to help the person feel safe, secure, and happy. And we're going to continue to bring respect for each and every conversation. And we are going to keep talking with them. We're going to keep telling them what we're about to do with them. And we're going to also use 5 senses to communicate, all the 5 senses. So touch, smell, taste. We're going to talk about all of those senses.
Say before that, we want to listen to Sandra. Her mother is in the late stage of Alzheimer's.
I know that my mom feels aggravated. I know that she feels alone. I know that she feels confused. And I know on any given day, I don't know if I've made it better for her. I try. In these later stages, I've come to recognize that being really aware of the 5 senses is really important. Touch seems to give her a great deal of comfort. I know when I come over, I'm going to brush her hair all the time. And my husband noted to me recently, he said, you know, you should see the look on your mom's face when you're brushing her hair. She's just happy. She's just happy. She doesn't say a lot. And I do it for a long period of time. I comb it, I braid it, I do funny things with it, but it just allows me to just be with her in a way that makes her feel comfortable.
All right, so first we're going to connect through touch, the first sense. So we're going to feel different fabrics, feel how it feels in our hands. Is it smooth? Is it bumpy? Is it rough? What does it feel like? We can also identify shapes by touch and talk about it with our loved one. We can also use lotion and oils to give hand massages or foot massages. Often our folks, sometimes as they get older, their skin dries out. So this is also good to help moisturize their skin. And we can identify everyday items, and we can put them all in a bag, and we can have your loved one pull them out and see what they feel like in their hands by touch. And describe it if they're able to, or you can describe it for them from what you're touching out of the bag. And visit with animals. That's a great one. A lot of times our folks light up when they see animals. Animals obviously bring everyone a lot of joy and companionship. So animals are also a great sense of touch. And they also have, for our folks as well out there, they also have battery operated animals that you can also purchase as well that act like a dog or a cat. And those are really neat too. And you can sculpt or use different art supplies and materials to get involved with utilizing your hands You can use fingerprint paint, which is nice and cool on the hands, and you can kind of smear that around on a picture. And you can hold the person's hand or stroke his or her arm or back. That is definitely important, the touch aspect of it. Just comforting them with touch is very important.
So the next sense we want to look at is connecting through sight. So we want to laminate perhaps a brightly colored pictures to look at together. Again, you can get those off of the internet probably and print them out, something that that the person would be related to or relatable to. Want to watch videos of animals, nature, or travel. Look at photo albums together of family and friends. View photos of famous paintings, favorite settings, or prominent people from the past. A lot of times people relate to certain musicians or movie stars, of things of that nature might be fun to look at. Go bird watching or visit an aquarium. Again, getting out there and seeing the animals. Have them paint with watercolors. And sit by a window, go outdoors, get some fresh air, something that lets them see what's happening besides in their own room.
And next, we're going to connect through sound. So listening to familiar music. Music and art light up your brain. So those are great things hobby-wise to do with your loved one. It also pulls from your loved one's long-term memory, which, as we know in this disease process, the short-term goes a lot quicker than the long-term memory. So you want to pull from that. You can pull from maybe the era that they grew up from, and what musicians were very popular during back in the day. Listen to recordings of the sounds of nature, of farms, cities, or animals. You can also do guided meditation recordings as well. Those are wonderful to do as well for meditation. And sometimes, they'll walk you through, they have certain programs that'll help you get to sleep easier, or help you kind of start your day in the morning. So that is also a great addition as well. You can also identify musical instruments by sounds and talk about it with your loved one. You can listen to songs or speech in the person's native language. You can also read books or poetry, look at scripture or newspaper articles, and discuss what that article is about with the person. And then overall, you're going to want to let the person hear the gentle tone of your voice. And you're going to want to connect by discussing something together. You can have a cup of coffee together and talk about the news.
And then lastly, we want to connect through smell. So we can make plastic bags containing items the person would like to smell, such as herbs and spices, something that's kind of strong and would catch their attention. Cotton balls dipped in essential oils, perhaps, some grass clippings or fragrant flowers, or tea or coffee if that's something that they like to drink. They probably recognize that. Using a fragrant lotion for hand or foot massages is going to be a nice one. And then cook or feed the person foods that smell good, such as apple pie or chicken soup, or particularly anything that you recall was their favorite food. It probably would bring them a lot of comfort to have that.
So we can also connect with our loved one through taste. So their favorite foods, as Melanie mentioned, any comfort foods, home-baked goodies, such as the cupcakes that are on the screen, popsicles. And I'll add with the popsicles, you can also get Pedialyte makes clear sleeves that have the Pedialyte in them, and you can throw those in the freezer and it makes a popsicle. So not only are you getting your electrolytes, but you're also having a nice popsicle cold treat that your loved one can suck on and, you know, use as well for oral sensation, which is good. And flavored drinks. Often, you know, a lot of our caregivers mention that our loved ones don't drink enough water. You can get the flavored drops that you can put in the water, which makes the water taste a little bit better and not have that flat water taste. So that'll cause them to drink more water, which is good. You want to stay away though from juices or things with caffeine and all that, because that dehydrates you and is high in sugar. Ice creams and puddings. You can also, another healthy alternative is yogurt. You can also substitute for Jell-O. Applesauce is another one.
So there are common threads for communication in all stages of the disease. So here's a little bit of a recap of those. We wanted to always join the person's reality in order to connect with them wherever they are. Understand and accept what you can and cannot change. Don't beat yourself up. Do the best you can. Remember that the person retains a sense of self despite the losses of the disease. Demonstrate respect and connect through feelings. Always treat the person as an adult. Try to decode the person's communications. Recognize the effects of your mood and actions. Try to understand the source of reactions and help meet the needs while soothing and calming the person.
So next we're going to hear from Sam Fazio. He's a PhD and he's with the Director of Special Projects for the National Office of the Alzheimer's Association.
Taking care of yourself while you care for somebody with the disease not only impacts your own health, but it really can impact the person with the disease. So for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be easily irritated, which will then sort of spill over to your interactions with the person with the disease and maybe being short with them, which then might cause them to get frustrated. So it's not only important to take care of yourself for your own health, but really for you to really be a good caregiver.
And that's very important. You want to make sure you take care of yourself, because if you don't, you won't be around to take care of your loved one. So how to contact us. We have a variety of different things here up on the screen. We have our website, which has a large amount of resources on there for you. That is ALZ as in zebra.org. We have the biggest, I think the biggest assets on that ALZ.org is the Community Resource Finder, which you can find any resource in any area. And Safety Center is very important as well. We also have a Trial Match, which is on our website as well. And that is where the loved one can get connected with clinical trials, which is very important. A lot of times get to experience new medications. And also we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline that's available all day, every day to you. And that number is 800-272-3900. We also have support groups, education programs. We have socialization programs where the caregiver and loved one can get on Zoom with us and can be exposed to different programs, cooking, magic shows, gardening, and a variety of different things, travel. And it's a great way for the caregiver and the loved one to socialize with other people, but also engage in cognitive stimulation, which is very important, exercise their brain. We also have care consultations, which are one-on-one meetings with our families and constituents, where we can give them specific help regarding their specific situation. It's confidential, and it's an opportunity to plan, talk about the resources or classes that we have that might be available to them. We have also a great class. It's a 4-week series called Caregiver Essentials. And I encourage all of you caregivers, if you're struggling in any way along this journey, to contact us about the Caregiver Essentials classes. Our next classes start in May, the first week in May, and there is still room available for those classes. Those are held on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and they're held every month right now on Zoom. So we hope you will join us for those. And we have so much more. We have everything that we have is free that we offer to families. We also have online education programs that are available at training.alz.org that is always available to you. We have regional office in Palm Desert programs, and then we also have chapter programming available as well to you. So all of that is free of charge, and we urge you to take advantage of it. We really want to stress that you're not alone in this journey. We know that it can be a very tricky journey, and it can take a lot out of the caregiver. And so we want to be along on this journey with you, and we want to give you tips and tricks to make the journey smoother and to talk about our resources that we can provide to you.
And so lastly, if you want to get involved, there are several ways to do that. One, you can volunteer like I am. You can participate in the Walk to End Alzheimer's or the Longest Day. They are both fundraising events. You could also become an advocate for the association and all the things that they're doing. Or you can even participate in the trial match where they're doing clinical trials, and you may be eligible to do that. So I think are we turning it over for questions? Oh, you got it.
So yeah, so just real quickly, we just want to reiterate up on the screen that we're here all day, every day. The 1-800 number is up again on the screen, the helpline, the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline. That's 800-272-3900. We also have our Palm Desert local office number. That's 760-996-0006. And we also have our website again at alz.org. So last but not least, we're going to turn it back over to TJ for questions.
Great, thank you both so much. A lot of terrific information. So yeah, we do have just a bit of time here for anyone who has a question or any comments or just wants to find out some more information. Feel free to use the question and answer feature, or if you do the raise hand, we can see you there too. So we do have one question from Kevin. Okay. It sounds like an electric toothbrush would be an advantage in a person with Alzheimer's. Are there any devices that might help with communication?
You know, that's a great question. You know, there's a lot of adaptive equipment stores out there that you can Google in our area. I believe there's some in Palm Desert. And you can actually ask them about the equipment that they have available, because a lot of times they do have adaptive equipment for your house in terms of grab bars and things like that. But they also have a lot of times the communication equipment as well. And if they don't, a lot of them do, but if they don't, you can also find it online. There's also a lot of communication devices that you can use as well, where you can, if their communication is very delayed or stunted, you can actually press buttons that correspond with pictures and things like that. So they are out there, absolutely. And if you need more resources on that, we can certainly get that over to you if you call into our office.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions? Give folks a last chance here if there's anything specific they want to ask.
I think the biggest thing, just to add, TJ, with the communication is it's different than communicating again with someone that doesn't have memory loss, because you're going to need more patience. Again, you can, in order for their brain to process, you're going to want to ask them one thing to do at a time. The important thing too is when you're planning your week or your day, to make sure you're not overloading all the things that you want to try to do. You want to try and limit it to about 3 things, 4 at the max, that you're going to try and get accomplished in a day, so that you're not rushing yourself and your loved one through those things or tiring them out. That's the other thing that can happen.
All right, great. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, but I do want to remind everyone that they can check out the first 2 videos in our series on our YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed already to that, you just need to go and type in YouTube, and then under YouTube, search Rancho Mirage Library and Observatory, and you'll find all of our great content. But in our lectures section, you'll see that the last 2 uploaded videos were our Alzheimer's series, and then we'll have this one uploaded by the end of the day tomorrow for anyone that's looking for it. So I'm gonna hand things over to last word for you. Anything you want to share as we wrap up our series? I want to thank you again. Remind everyone out there that we do have ongoing programming, even though the library is not open, or we're open, but even though we can't do in-person programming, we are still offering several programs throughout the month. So look for an email coming out if you're on our list with all of our May programs. That'll go out Sunday morning. So there's a lot of exciting things coming up. But with that, I'll say good afternoon. And Jennifer, anything you wanna end with today?
Just we encourage anybody to call with a question or to get involved in our programs. We'd love to assist the community, and we're always looking for ways to make sure that we are, again, helping you through this journey, and helping your loved one as well. We have programs for both the caregiver and the loved one.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.